Would you rather give your child $100,000 today or leave them $1 million after you're gone? What if it was $5,000 versus $50,000? Which one creates a bigger impact? $100,000, for example, when your child actually needs it, or $1 million after you're gone? At first glance, the answer seems obvious, like $1 million is way more than $100,000. But what if the smaller gift arrived at the moment that could change everything for your child? What if it could help them buy a home? What if it was to start a business, maybe pay off student loans or raise a family? What if it created opportunities that could alter the course of their life? Meanwhile, the larger inheritance, it may come when they're older. I mean, we're talking about decades later. And that's one of the tensions that's really at the heart of a book. It was called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. I think it was a bestseller. But his argument was really simple. Too many people spend their entire lives accumulating wealth only to die with most of it still sitting in an investment account. In fact, studies have shown that so many retirees spend little of their principal. In some, you actually die with more than when they retired. So think about this. You retire with $1 million, but they died with $2 million. What happened? So Perkins asked a simple question. What's the point of having all that money? If you worked your whole life to build wealth, why die without even using it? Why not spend more during your life? Why not travel? Why not create memories? Why not help your children or others while you're still alive? And honestly, I think he's partially right. I've met plenty of people who are so worried about running out of money that they ran out of life first. They spent decades thinking, someday we'll travel. Someday we'll visit Europe. Someday we'll spend more time with the grandkids. Then someday arrives and their health is gone. There's something called healthspan and lifespan, and it's about a 12-year difference. In other words, if your life expectancy is 80, subtract 12 off of that, what is that? It ends up being, what, 68? Then that's when your health span ends. That's when you have continuous health issues all the way until you die. Something that restricts your life. Like, hey, your knees don't work when you planned on going hiking. You loved hiking, and that's what you were going to do in retirement, but you can no longer do those things that you wanted to do because of your health. Or your energy isn't there. Basically, the health is just not there. The experience that they delayed are no longer available to them because of that. Now, being able to do these things while you're alive, Perkins calls these memory dividends. The memories you create today continue paying dividends for the rest of your life. In fact, you get to enjoy thinking about them when you're retired or unable to do them anymore. And I think there is some real wisdom in that. But I also think the conversation is bigger than what Bill Perkins makes it. Because after spending decades helping investors, business owners, and families build wealth, I've noticed something. Most people fall into one of three categories. I'll call it the consumer, the protector, and 3, the steward. The consumer wants to die with zero. That's your die with zero person. The protector wants to make sure that they never run out of money. The steward is trying to accomplish something completely different. Let's talk about each one. The consumer. We'll start there. The consumer believes that money is a tool to maximize life's experiences. And that is the philosophy behind Die with Zero. Spend the money, take the trip, create the memories, help the kids while you're alive, help the organizations you care about while you're alive, enjoy the fruits of your labor. And frankly, there's a lot I like about this approach. Money is supposed to improve your life. A dollar spent creating a meaningful experience at age 40 may be worth way more than that same dollar sitting in an account when you're 90. A child may benefit more from help buying their first home at 30 than from inheriting money at 70. A family vacation today may create memories that last generations, and those are powerful ideas. But there's another group, and that's the protectors. And if we're honest, this is where a lot of retirees live. The protector worries about running out of money. They worry about inflation. They worry about healthcare costs. They worry about long-term care. They worry about market crashes. They worry about becoming a burden on their family. And I've seen people with millions of dollars in investment accounts who still hesitate to spend money on themselves or their family. They spent their entire lives building wealth, accumulating, saving, protecting, and now they can't bring themselves to use it. The irony is that these people will never actually run out of money. They die with substantial estates, sometimes larger than when they retired. About a third of the time, that's actually the case. About a third of the time, it doesn't move, and about a third of the time, it's reduced, but not to zero. And that's where Bill Perkins starts to push back. He tells the story in his book about a secretary who lived an extremely frugal life. She sacrificed, she saved, she accumulated, and when she died, she left something like $8 to $9 million to different charities. Most people heard that story and they said, what an incredibly generous woman. Makes for a great story, but Perkins asked a different question. What if she had started giving while she was alive? I mean, she accumulated millions of dollars. What if she had watched students graduate because of scholarships she funded? What if she had seen the family she helped or fed? What if she had experienced the impact of her generosity firsthand? Why did she have to wait until death? Now, that's a fair question. But I think both the consumers and the protectors are missing something important, which brings me to the third group, the stewards. And when I'm talking to clients, I often ask them to do something really strange. Those of you who have known me for years know that I've done this for a long time. I ask them to imagine their family, what their estate looks like 300 years from now. I didn't misstate, 300 years, to sit in future trip. Not 30 years, not after their kids inherit, like I'm giving it all to my kids. I ask them to think 300 years into the future. By the way, in Nevada, we have trusts that last 365 years. It's something anybody can do. You can make it perpetual. But when you start future tripping, 300 years out, do my descendants even know my name? Did your values, what you care about, did they survive? Did your family thrive? Did your wealth create opportunities? Did your generosity continue? Did your faith continue? Did anything you built during your lifetime outlive you? You see, I don't believe we can take it with us, not a dollar. I don't think, like, you don't have the U-Haul behind the, going to the funeral home. You don't get to take a dollar, not a stock certificate, not a rental property, not a business. We don't get to take it with us, but we can decide where it goes. You give it purpose, like during your lifetime you gave those things purpose, and you could still give it purpose after your lifetime. You give it purpose in both your life and after. That's stewardship. The Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Most people hear that and they think it's talking about money, but I think it's talking about much more than money. I'm talking about values, character, opportunity, responsibility, faith, purpose. Money is simply one of the tools used to transfer those things. I had a client whose biggest dream wasn't a vacation home or a bigger investment account. He wanted to make sure his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandkids, his future descendants would always have the opportunity to pursue higher education if they chose. You want to go to college, law school, medical school, any path of learning that could open doors and expand their possibilities. And he often said, education changed the trajectory of our family. I want that opportunity available for generations. I get it. So we built a plan around that goal. Not because he expected every descendant to follow the same path, but because he believed access to education creates choices, and choices create opportunity. And by the way, easy plan to do with a simple living trust. And even if you don't have a ton of money, you can just insure your life and make sure the trust is a beneficiary. Voila, you have a legacy. I had another client who loved mission work. She wasn't obsessed with leaving the biggest inheritance possible. She wasn't trying to die with zero either. What she cared about was making sure her children and her future descendants, her great-great-great-grandkids, right, experienced the same joy and purpose she found serving others. She told me, I don't want to leave them money. I want to leave them opportunities to make a difference. So we built a plan. Part of that plan, and the way she funded it, was to buy simple term policies. I don't sell these, but by the way, but there are plenty of people who do, and it's cheap term. And then you have it dump into a living trust, not because she was trying to control people from the grave, but because she wanted to create a framework that encouraged future generations to continue supporting the causes that she loved. So she had a plan that funded them to leave the United States and travel international for a couple of weeks a year. And I just want you to think about that for a second, right? She wasn't just giving money, she was transferring values, because she believed that even if you didn't do mission work, if you just traveled internationally, you're going to be a better human being. You're going to have empathy, and you're going to appreciate where you live and the opportunities that you have. And that's what she built. She built a values transition. And I think that's what a lot of people miss the point. Inheritance is not about transferring money. In fact, I'm sure down in the comments, I'm going to get all these people saying, I have no money, so I don't have to worry about it. You have a life, and it's pretty cheap to get some simple life insurance where you could have a plan where it does something that you care about. Maybe it's taking care of animals. Maybe you are a volleyball coach. I have a very good friend who did this. And you say, hey, I'm supporting the local club, and I want there to be a fund there so that it doesn't go away, and like it always has perpetual funding. It's about transferring values. A lot of people think legacy is about how much money you leave. I think it's more about what your money stands for, the purpose you give it. So the real question is whether your values survive after the dollars are gone. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need millions of dollars to be a steward. I've seen teachers create legacies with very little. I've seen working class families create legacies with modest amounts. I've seen parents leave opportunities they never could have accumulated during their lifetime using simple tools to create their plan. I just named two, term life and a living trust. The legacy, that's not reserved for the wealthy. It's available to anyone who plans intentionally. And that's why I don't think the goal is to die with zero. I don't think the goal is to die with millions either. The goal is to use your resources wisely while you're alive and make sure they continue creating value after you're gone. Man, so many people are worried about giving their kids money and what the kids are going to do with it. I have that conversation all the time. I had a conversation, real life, $30+ million, and they're like, one kid has substance abuse issues, one is like they're really bad with money, they're worried what if they get a divorce, they don't like the spouse, what if they're sued, you know, what if they are bad with money, what if my grandkids, and literally the clients just kind of freeze. They think it's one or the other. I either give them all the money or I don't, and that's not how it works. What I would tell those folks is there are tools to deal with those issues, to minimize risks and help future generations. In that case, it was a huge estate, right? And I was like, hey, get a corporate trustee that manages those assets so your kids don't have to, and provide them something called HEM standard that all states have and that fiduciaries know how to follow: health, education, maintenance, and support. They can't go out and buy a Lamborghini, but if they need a car, they can get a Camry. They can't just quit their job and never work, but they're not going to be homeless. If they have a life-changing event, like a health issue, there's money for that. If they have education opportunities, there's money for that. Health, education, maintenance, and support. But the kids can't just go in there and rate it and take it. All these tools are there. And so what I would say to them is, hey, put those tools in place, enjoy your life, take the trip, help your, like, don't say, I'm just, because I really want my kids to benefit, therefore I'm going to suffer. No, 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 no. You can do both. There are tools to help dump a bunch of cash in if something happens to you, or you just let things continue to compound. You can take that trip. You could help your children during their lifetime. You could support causes you believe in. You can create the memories that they talk about and die with zero. But also think beyond yourself. You think about your family. You think about your community, your faith, the impact. Think about 300 years in the future. I know it trips people out when I say that, and some people immediately turn off. Please don't. Just think about it. Put it in the comments, by the way. What does your estate, what does that mean for you? And if you could put in there, I don't care, right? Okay, that's deliberate. But for some people, they really do care, and they start saying, I see the vision. Let me give you an example. Milton Hershey. I love this. It was 1909 that he did a deed of trust. He created a charitable entity with a bunch of land to start the Milton Hershey School, and it was to train orphan boys in agriculture. And he didn't give it any money, he just gave it land. That charity today is worth over it was well over 13 billion. I think it's over 17 billion as of this morning. $13 billion that educates over 2,000 kids. This was from 1909. And he didn't give it money until many years later. He left shares in the Hershey company. And he put in restrictions. You can't sell it. You could just use the income off of it. And I want you to use it for this purpose. And so now it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And they're like, oh my God, we're having to do hospitals, museums, all these different things. Yes, there's a medical center that it funded, and it's funded for all these kids. They had to expand it from being just orphan boys. They've added girls, and it's low income, it's need-based, and they could just keep helping children, all because somebody had the foresight to say, hey, what is this going to look like many years from now? And it's been 120 years, less than 120 years, and it's already just grown. So Bill Perkins asked whether you should die with zero. I think there's a better question. When your story is over, what happens to everything you've built? Because you can't take it with you, but you can decide where it goes. And that's the difference between being a consumer, being a protector, and being a steward. And for those of you guys who are here in that protector land, I get you, I understand. You have to let go of some of that anxiety. And you have to talk to somebody who can help create a plan so that you're not worried. You don't need to be wealthy to create a plan. And by the way, if you'd like help creating a plan that protects your family, preserves your values, and creates a lasting legacy, schedule a consultation with one of my advisors. It's right there in the show notes, or you could put advisor, just type it down in the comment section, or legacy, even better. Put legacy or advisor down there in the comments, and we'll send you a link so you can have a free consult with somebody. And if you're wondering whether a living trust makes sense for your family, I'm going to share with you a video, The Truth About Living Trust, that I recorded. It will explain things to you and make it understandable so you know whether it's something that you might want to consider. Thanks for watching. I'm Toby Mathis. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.